Hi everyone, and welcome to Lunchtime Live at the Wild Center. My name is Chelsea and I'm part of the animal care staff here at the Wild Center. And right now you guys are joining me behind the scenes in one of our coolest and least seen areas. It is what we call our snake room. Now, today I'm going to give you guys a quick, real brief tour of the snake room, but I'm also going to do a little bit of animal training, which I'm really excited to. So I'll show you guys around the room quickly. You can see behind me, we have some of our snake enclosures. That is Cleo the milk snake. I don't think we can see Richard the garter snake, but we can see Draco the rat snake. So these guys all live in here, but today we're actually not going to do training with them. Instead, we are going to focus on an even more unlikely animal for animal training. And that is Craymond the crayfish. So let me guys get you situated. Let me get you guys situated so that you have an excellent view of Craymond. So one of my biggest responsibilities here at the Wild Center as part of the animal care staff is to just take care of all of these animals, make sure that they are happy and healthy. And one of the ways we can do that, which is most fun, is through animal training. Now, this is a live stream, so occasionally I'm going to ask you guys questions, and if you want to, shoot responses in the comment section, and I will do my best to answer any questions you guys have live, which is pretty cool. So animal training is something that a lot of people have some level of experience with. And that experience might be at home with your dog. A lot of people have dogs or cats or sometimes even fish that they do animal training with. And that's their biggest kind of touch point with animal training. And realistically, here at the Wild Center, we probably use a lot of the same techniques with our animals that you guys would use with pets at home. And I'm just going to shift the camera so you guys can get a little bit of a look at Craymond. She seems a little camera shy at the moment, so she went over just to the other side of that log, probably wondering what I'm doing. So you guys probably use something called positive reinforcement training if you've ever trained a dog at home using treats. The dog does what you want it to do, and you give it a treat because that makes the dog want to do it again. So for example, if your dog sits, you give it a treat, and then your dog suddenly might be running across the room and sitting in front of you because they really love treats. And that's the same type of training we use with our animals here. But sometimes the animals look a little differently than your dog at home. And we have different reasons why we might train the animals here. Sometimes we train them to help with medical behaviors. So if you guys have ever had a dog trained to get their nails trimmed, that's an example of a medical behavior. Sometimes we train them to give them exercise. So you guys, if you've been following Lunchtime Live, have seen some of our birds doing some flight practice. And sometimes we train our animals to make their lives and our lives easier. So Craymond the crayfish here recently got upgraded from the small enclosure that she lived in to a bigger enclosure. And we did that because Craymond, when she first came to us, a little bit smaller than she is now. And so that space was okay for her originally, but now we want to give her a lot more room. And I see that Linda's saying hello. Hi, Linda, I'm glad that you're with us. So we moved Craymond into this space last week, and you can tell she really likes having a lot more room. But Craymond has a special role here at the Wild Center, and that is an animal ambassador. So Craymond actually comes out with a staff member to teach people about crayfish and about the waterways that you can find here in the Adirondacks where the Wild Center is located. But I'm going to zoom out. This is a pretty big tank for us to take Craymond out in. It would be really heavy to lift, and it wouldn't be safe for the person trying to move that tank on their own, or for Craymond, because some rocks might move around and that might not be the best situation. So instead of having people take this whole enclosure, our goal is to have Craymond go into kind of a transport carrier so that temporarily she can be in a smaller space for those programs, but she still gets to come home to her penthouse suite where she'll spend the majority of her time. And you can see she's loving moving back and forth. I think she's trying to figure out what's going on. Usually when we open up her enclosure, we're about to feed Craymond, and that is a big part of what we're going to do today. So Craymond here gets the same types of food every day. And she is right in the back. You can just see her in the back of this log. So Craymond gets the same type of food every day. And if you guys know anything about crayfish, or even maybe some of their relatives like lobsters, I want you to write in the comments what you think Craymond eats. And you saw a little bit of a glimpse of some of the food she gets. And afterwards, I'll show you guys what I'm hoping to give Craymond today. Because one of the best things to do when you're doing animal training is to find out what's valuable to the animal you want to train. So for example, my dog at home, he doesn't really care for peanut butter, which I know is really weird, but you can leave like a whole open jar of peanut butter near my dog and he won't even touch it. But he loves these kind of dry little treats called Charlie Bears, and he will work for those. So even though most dogs like peanut butter, for my dog, that's not an effective treat. So I am going to show you guys some of what we're going to be giving Craymond today. And so I have a few things. Right here is a delicious meatball. So that's just a ground meat. We don't normally give Craymond that meat because it does have some fat in it, and that fat makes Craymond's water a little gross, but we can try giving it to her in small periods for training. Then you'll see I have some fish. That's actually the majority of what Craymond eats. So she doesn't eat every single day, but when we do feed her a few times a week, she gets this type of fish, which is called smelt. And then inside of this enclosure, or this little bucket, you can see all those wiggly things. Those are frozen bloodworms. So similar to what you might buy at a store for fish, just not dehydrated. And so we are going to see what Craymond wants to eat today. And as I mentioned, our end goal here eventually is to get Craymond to move into a little transport container so that we can take her out for programs without stressing her. And how we're going to do that isn't chasing her around with a net. Instead, I want Craymond to follow something that I put in her enclosure. And the easiest thing to make that happen, if you look to the side of the log that Craymond is in, I don't want her to see it yet, but the easiest way that I'm going to try to do this is by having a laser pointer. And we're going to do something called target training. So I can point this laser pointer anywhere in Craymond's enclosure. And my goal is when she sees it, eventually I want her to go where that laser pointer is touching. And eventually that'll be inside that transport container. So it's a little bit of a convoluted process, but we're starting it today. And this is actually the first time we've ever done this with Craymond, and it's my first time that I've ever trained a crayfish. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is just put this laser pointer right where Craymond can see it. She might be a little bit afraid of it. She's never seen it again. And if she is, then I'll talk about what our next steps are, because I don't want this to be scary. But even if she just lets it be there for a second without moving away, I'm going to give her that reward. Yeah, those claws, Katie, are pretty big. I will admit I am a little bit of a baby and I am very afraid of Craymond pinching me, which is why you'll see I'm going to use some tongs to deliver the food if she doesn't walk away from this laser pointer. So we're going to put it right in front of her right now and see what she does. Awesome. And so there was no reaction whatsoever there. And so I am going to give Craymond that food reward. And you saw she tried to get it and she missed. So I'm actually going to drop another little bit in front of her. Oh, there she goes. So you can see she's picking up that little piece of fish and she is now eating it. So I chopped the fish up really, really small, and you guys are getting a really cool view at her underside, which is how she is eating the food. It's super cool. It's a really unique view. So that was really great. I put that laser pointer in front of Craymond. She didn't react, but then I put food in, and as soon as I put the food in, she moved forward to where that laser pointer was. Now we're going to move to another step. She still has a little bit of that food left. She's using some of her smaller kind of claws. You guys can see those big honking ones in front. She's moving some of her smaller claws to get that food back up to her mouth parts and eat it. And now she's looking to see what else she can get. So I think I'm gonna try a little bit of that ground meat next. And it's okay to play with these different treats or rewards or reinforcers, because again, we want Craymond to be able to tell us what are the things she wants to work for most. Now, of course, Craymond turned right around. Not a big deal. For right now, I'm going to wait for her to turn back to me. That way, it makes my job a little bit easier. You know, I don't want to have to try to angle stuff and put stuff in there, and there's a good chance I would scare her. And I'm also not going to pick that log up and move it off of her. If Craymond wants to stay in there, that's totally okay, because that's where she feels safe and secure. And if lifting that would make her less secure, feel less safe, I don't want to do that. I would guess, honestly though, that she mostly just had the food turn around in there and go behind her, and so now she is going behind looking for it. So we're gonna give her another second. I see that we have another question that Craymond here is moving her antenna up as well as in the front. She's moving them forward and she's bending them, and is that typical? Absolutely. So the antenna of lots of different animals, most animals that have antenna use them to help with some type of sensory input. And so for Craymond, a big part of what she's using her antenna for is touch, sensing vibrations and feeling what's going on in the water around her. Now, I don't know too much about how crayfish use their antenna specifically. I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I don't know too much, but she could also, I know some animals use their antenna for almost like a sense of smell. So either way, she's definitely using that resource, her antennas, to help find food, especially that food that I just put in. You might have noticed when she was moving before, her antennas were kind of slowly moving around, but now that I put that food in there, they went wild. So you guys might not be able to see it too much, but Craymond did turn back around in the log. I'm gonna point that laser pointer straight down. Oh, and I saw a little bit of movement. And so Craymond there just dropped another little bit of food in, some of that yummy meat that she doesn't normally get. So right there, Craymond actually did move towards that laser pointer, which is awesome. A lot of people don't think that you can train any animal. You know, we think of animals like cats and dogs and horses. Those are easy animals to train. But training is just a really specific type of learning that you're helping an animal do. And animals learn all the time. So Craymond here now looks really eager. It seems like maybe she liked that delicious kind of fatty meat. So I'm actually going to put the laser pointer a little bit to the side, and we'll see if she moves towards it. And if she does, once she moves in that direction, she's going to get that food. And so we are already doing this training. Like I said, a lot of people don't think you can train something like a crayfish, and I have never trained a crayfish before, and Craymond here has never been trained for anything specifically. But again, it's just targeted learning. If you think about crayfish in the wild or any animal in the wild, they're learning all the time. So they might learn where is the best spot for food. Maybe for Craymond, and she's still eating, so I shouldn't have shown that light yet because I don't want her to see it and not get that immediate, yeah, this is awesome. So I'm gonna wait for her to be done eating and then hope I catch her before she moves away. So here we go. I think she's mostly done. So I'm gonna put it over here, and same thing, if she moves towards it, she's gonna get some food. So as soon as she turns her body towards it, and if she doesn't, that's totally okay, she's gonna get that reward. We'll leave it in for a second longer, just because she's still making those connections about what exactly is going on here. And there she goes, she moved a little bit towards it. So now that food is going in. And hopefully, I think she got a little bit scared there. I probably bumped the tank when I moved my arm out. And so that was a little bit scary for her, so she retreated back into that log, but she's already coming forward again to investigate that yummy, yummy food. So it seems like she really liked when we added this extra meat in that she doesn't normally get. So that's something good for me as her trainer to keep in mind. And now I am going to try the next time she moves towards the light to give her those bloodworms. But they're really, really tiny, so it's hard for me to get a hold of them with the tongs that you guys saw. So instead, I'm going to adapt, and I'm actually going to use a little empty syringe to pull them up. So those bloodworms are in water, and I'm just going to try to suck them up and see if I can get one in, and if that's a good way to make sure that Craymond can get this food. So I have a bloodworm. I'll show it to you guys as best as I can. You can see that little red squiggle in there. That's the bloodworm. It's not alive, so it's not going to go anywhere. But hopefully Craymond will like it. And I see that you are asking, we have a question about from Cicely is Craymond leaving a lot of the food uneaten? Absolutely. So Craymond here is doing a little bit of tasting, and she's pulling the food back up. So she actually just pulled up some of that meat that you were probably noticing she had left behind. And that's totally okay. I like to say that crayfish, they're kind of like taste testers. They don't often eat a whole thing that they find. Instead, they'll eat little bits here and there, and maybe they'll come back to it. So we're gonna see if she'll come back over towards the light. Craymond is also probably wondering what's going on, especially with the different tastes I'm giving her. She's not used to getting multiple different types of food at one setting, so she's probably a little excited by that and wondering what's going on. So, Craymond is again moving away. She moved away from the edge, and that's totally okay. A big part of animal training is learning when your animals are maybe telling you that they're not interested anymore. And so Craymond just went back over to the other side of that log, and since she had been so focused and seemingly to me excited, you know, she really seemed like she was excited about that food. She was moving really far towards it. Once she moves away, I'm going to say, okay, maybe she lost interest or something else took her interest more. So rather than following her around and trying to really get her to do what I want, I'm just going to listen to her. Anytime we train an animal, we want it to be kind of a two-way street of communication. And so if Craymond is telling me that she'd rather not be training, then it's my responsibility as her trainer to listen to what she's telling me. She can't speak with words like we can, but she can definitely speak with her body language and with her actions. And right now her actions are saying she's maybe done. But that's totally okay. So, you guys just saw me train a crayfish. This Lunchtime Live was titled, Can You Train Any Animal? And the answer is yes, because you just need to find out what that animal likes, and you need to find out what's a realistic thing for them to do. You know, I did not get Craymond moving very, very far to touch that laser pointer light today. In fact, she only moved towards it a couple of times. But for her first time ever doing any kind of training with a human being, that's awesome. We did a lot today. We got a lot further than I thought we would. I actually thought she would be really scared of the light at first and that I'd have to like point it way over on the other side of her tank. But Craymond proved my expectations wrong. So with a lot of thought and caring and patience, anybody can train any animal, which is pretty cool because even animals like crayfish can be trained. And I see that Donnie's asking, is that lettuce? So I'll turn the camera around. Craymond actually had just taken a swipe at that lettuce. It absolutely is. So we feed Craymond mostly meat-based food here, but crayfish in the wild will absolutely also eat plant matter. So we do give her kind of standing plant matter vegetation in her enclosure. So right now she has some lettuce. Sometimes we'll give her carrots or other veggies, and she seems to not like them as much as the meat, to be honest, which is why I didn't bring any carrots to try to train her. So I am really glad that you guys joined me today. This is a really cool and unique thing that was my first time doing it, and I'm glad that you guys came along with me. So tune in tomorrow for another episode of Lunchtime Live. Hopefully we'll see you guys here at the Wild Center in person, and if you're lucky, some of you guys might get to see Craymond after she's ready to move into that transport container and go out to explore and to meet new people. So hopefully I'll see you guys soon. And if it's nice weather where you are, nice spring weather, I hope you get outside and you get to enjoy it. Bye guys.